Hey guys, it's William. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you another amazing classic French pastry. We are going to make Religieuse, which is a very classic pastry made out of choux. It's basically a large choux and then you have a smaller one on top of it. And we are going to fill those choux today with a beautiful rhubarb compote as well as a white chocolate mousse. It's going to be divine. We are going to make everything from scratch and I'm sure that you're going to love this recipe, so let's get right into it. Okay, so first of all, we are going to start with our rhubarb compote, and I am using here a beautiful pink rhubarb that I have washed and then cut very nicely, and I'm just going to put that in my pot, and then I'm going to add a large amount of sugar since rhubarb is very sour and you need that sugar to just create the best texture and taste. And I'm also going to add some vanilla extract as well as the zest of a lime as well as the juice, just to create a bit more sourness. Actually, it's divine in taste. And then you're just gonna mix that with your spatula and put everything on the stove and let it cook for about 10 to 15 minutes or until everything breaks down and you cannot see the rhubarb anymore and the texture is very smooth and cooked, basically. And then we're gonna mash it up. My rhubarb is now perfect, so I'm just going to use a blender and mix it up until we have a very fine puree and that you cannot longer see the fibers in the rhubarb. And then you are going to let it cool completely, first at room temperature and then in the fridge to let it set. Next step, we are going to make the glaze. It is a very classic mirror glaze and we are going to make it now since it needs to rest a bit before we use it. So we are going to melt together some granulated white sugar with a bit of water as well as some corn syrup. You can also use glucose. For example, in France, I only use glucose syrup, but in the US, it's more common to use corn syrup. And I'm just going to put it on the stove and let it reach 103 degrees Celsius or 217 degrees Fahrenheit, and it will take about 5 minutes. Great, now I'm just going to add my syrup and some sweetened condensed milk and mix everything thoroughly until it is pretty much combined. And then we are going to add some white chocolate chips. These will add a beautiful taste but also texture to the overall glaze. And you are just going to mix until everything is melted. Finally, I'm going to add some gelatin powder. This will also help the glaze to set. You can also use agar, but you need to boil it down. So just make sure that you do so before using it. And then I'm just going to color my beautiful glaze in rhubarb color. So basically a mix between pink and red. And then we are going to let this glaze cool down completely in the fridge for about 2 hours. Our rhubarb compote and our glaze are chilling and it's perfect. So now we are going to make the choux dough. It is quite easy to make. You don't have to be afraid of it. And I'm basically going to melt a lot of ingredients in a pot, starting with some whole milk. And then I'm also going to add some water as well as a bit of sugar and some butter. And I'm just going to put everything on my stove and let it melt for about 3 minutes. I also added a pinch of salt, and now that everything is melted, I'm going to add my flour and mix with my spatula until it pretty much dries up a bit more. It will take about 5 minutes on a medium heat, and just make sure that you mix continuously with your spatula and it will be perfect. Our dough is a bit more dry, so exactly what we want. An important step now is to actually let it cool down a bit before adding the eggs. So I'm just going to transfer it into another bowl and mix it up for about 2 minutes on medium to high speed, just to make sure that it cools down a bit before we add the first egg. This will make sure that our choux actually rise extremely well in the oven. And basically, I'm then going to add my eggs one by one, mixing very well between each addition. We have the perfect consistency, so now I'm just going to put my dough in a piping bag. Always easier to actually pipe your dough to make choux. It is way cleaner and just more professional looking. And then you are going to pipe out your choux, and I'm just going to create different sizes just to make sure that we have a smaller choux on top and a bigger choux at the bottom, and then we will add the craquelin. Another important step when it comes to making choux is using craquelin, which is a mixture of butter, flour and sugar that I've just rolled down, and then I let it set in the fridge and I cut some circles, and then you just put this dough on top of your choux, and this will make sure that they actually rise perfectly well, and it will also add a great texture. Alright, it is time to bake our choux, and I'm just going to bake them in my preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius, that's 350 in Fahrenheit, and I'm going to bake the smaller ones for about 20 minutes and the bigger ones for about 30 minutes. You just want to make sure that they are well cooked inside and hollow and dry, and then you are going to let them cool completely at room temperature. Finally, the last step of this recipe, we are going to make the mascarpone white chocolate mousse. It is divine and goes perfectly well with the rhubarb compote. And I'm just going to start making a ganache out of white chocolate, of course, and some cream. I'm just going to melt those together. It will be actually easier to introduce it to our mascarpone cream cheese, and it will just take a few seconds in the microwave. Now I'm just going to mix together my mascarpone cream cheese. You can definitely use regular cream cheese if you prefer. And I'm just going to add a bit of vanilla extract and mix that well. And then we will introduce the white chocolate ganache, which has set a bit for about 5 minutes. You don't want to add boiling ganache to a cream cheese base, of course, since it's going to melt everything. And then you're just going to mix everything with your beaters. Now I'm just going to add some fluffy whipped cream to my mascarpone white chocolate mixture. This will actually create the mousse effect, and then we'll have the perfect texture. I'm just going to put everything in the fridge once again for about an hour or two, just to make sure that this frosting is very thick and perfect to pipe. It is time to assemble our beautiful choux pastries to create the religieuse look. And so basically, I'm just going to fill my choux using some white chocolate frosting as well as our rhubarb compote. And I'm just going to pipe my white chocolate mousse first, and then I will add the rhubarb, which will be in the center of our choux when we'll cut them open, and then we will assemble everything. Make sure that your choux are a bit cold before dipping them in the glaze, and then you're just going to put the smaller one on top of the bigger one, and I'm just going to decorate a bit more using my white chocolate mousse. Final step for the decoration, I'm just going to create nice hats using some white chocolate and a parchment paper cone, and I'm basically just going to let them cool for a few seconds before putting them on our beautiful religieuse, and this will create a beautiful feminine look. And there you go, our religieuses are now done. If you want to make things a bit more simpler, you can actually use fondant or almond paste if you want to decorate your choux instead of the glaze, for example. And you could do things a bit more simple also for the inside of your choux. You can just do the compote or just the mousse. You do what you want. It was mostly to inspire you, and I hope that you will be inspired by this recipe and that you are going to recreate it and share a picture with me on social media. You can find the entire list of ingredients in the description box down below, as well as my social media, so Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please don't forget to give this video a like and a comment if you enjoyed it, and I will see you very soon for another amazing recipe. Bye!